After the car accident, I woke up to discover that I somehow had a cool-tempered, strikingly handsome beta spouse. My heart pounded wildly, and I had to fight hard to keep the corners of my mouth from flying up to the ceiling. I kept asking him about our relationship history. When I hesitantly asked whether things between us were harmonious, he suddenly paused. After thinking for quite a while, he finally answered, "Not very harmonious." He considered it again, then added, "Pretty average, honestly." I felt like my soul was cracking open. A heavy scent of disinfectant filled the air. The restless beeping of the machines beside me made it impossible to sleep. When I opened my eyes, the first things I saw were the white ceiling and the 4 bottle hanging above my head. A sharp pain throbbed through my skull as my mind remained blank. I turned my head, confused, taking in my surroundings. A hospital bed, medical equipment, and a man. He didn't notice me at first. He was completely focused on peeling an apple. His soft, short hair fell forward as he lowered his head, exposing the clean line of his nape under the light. Just from his silhouette alone, I felt a strange sense of familiarity. The man finally noticed movement. He turned around, and a cool, refined, breathtakingly handsome face appeared before me. My heart instantly raced, so fast that even the machine beside me sped up in panic. There was no scent of any emotional signature. He was a beta. For alphas like me, those considered highly compatible, the typical choice of partner was usually an omega, someone who could resonate with our emotional aura. But there were always exceptions. Like me. Because it seemed that I had just fallen in love with this unfamiliar beta at first sight. He was simply too good-looking. Just looking at him made something soft bloom in my chest, tingling and warm. At that moment, one thought filled my entire head. I wish he were my spouse. Our eyes met. I straightened my hospital gown, ruffled my flattened hair, and gave what I believed was a charming smile. "Hi, may I ask your name?" He glanced up at me and answered in a cool tone, "Ronan." My heart did another violent jump. I tested carefully, "So what exactly is our relationship?" Ronan paused. Then, after studying me for a long moment, he said, "You're my husband." I was stunned. How did I manage to marry someone this gorgeous? I swallowed hard and double-checked. "Really?" Ronan nodded. I could barely hold down my grin. It felt like it was trying to escape upward on its own. Was this real? I opened my eyes and instantly gained an angel for a spouse? Ronan withdrew his gaze and calmly picked up the book on the bedside table, reading on his own. I was floating on a cloud of delight and continued chatting with him. Ronan, you're a beta, right?" Ronan nodded. "So, how did we meet?" He paused. "A blind date." "A blind date marriage?" Spicy. I felt strength return to every cell in my body. Then another question hit me. I stammered, "Then, as an alpha and a beta, are we getting along well in that area?" Ronan's expression shifted. I hurried to explain, No. Because betas are different from omegas, so I was afraid. And alphas tend to be more intense." Ronan looked over at me, silent for a long time. Finally, he narrowed his eyes and said, "Not very harmonious." He thought again and added, "Pretty average." I froze in place as Ronan calmly went to call the doctor. After a routine check, 2 people claiming to be my parents rushed in from outside and clung to me, crying uncontrollably. "My son, we were so worried about you. These past days, Ronan has been caring for you day and night. You must thank him properly. And you are not allowed to do anything that angers him again. Once you recover, we'll talk everything through." I didn't know how to respond. Instinctively, I searched for Ronan. He stood at a distance, his expression distant, gaze unreadable. By evening, the room finally quieted down. I pieced together everything I'd learned. My name is Miles. I'm 29. 2 days ago, I was in a car accident. Nothing too serious, but the impact caused temporary memory loss. As I mulled over this, the man who'd been pushed aside earlier quietly returned to his seat. My mind immediately blanked again, thoughts scattering. "Pretty average" echoed loudly in my head. I tossed and turned that night, unable to sleep. Hidden under the blanket, I reviewed the same question over and over, still unable to understand. If everything was normal, then why was it average? Was it that I lacked stamina? The more I thought about it, the worse I felt, and I decided to get up and test my mobility. But the moment I moved, I woke Ronan on the neighboring bed. He lifted his head sleepily, voice low and soft. His loose collar shifted slightly as he sat up. Under the moonlight, the scene hit me unexpectedly hard. A rush of heat surged through me, so sudden I couldn't breathe. Ronan rubbed his eyes. "Where are you going instead of sleeping?" His quiet voice curled into my ears, sending a trail of tingles down my spine. I obediently lay back down. Seeing me settle, Ronan curled up again and fell asleep quickly. I, however, lay awake the entire night. Slowly, I came to realize maybe average wasn't about physical factors at all. It might simply be my lack of skill or compatibility. Betas were different from omegas, and if I wasn't good at adjusting, of course Ronan wouldn't feel comfortable. Relief washed through me. Skill could be improved. If it had been a physical issue, that would have been harder to handle. I stayed in the hospital for several days, and Ronan stayed with me the entire time. Probably because of the supposed disharmony, Ronan kept his distance. His attitude remained cool, and he avoided unnecessary physical contact. Since he ignored me, I could only pretend to be weak and unsteady. Only then would Ronan soften, asking gently if I felt uncomfortable and helping me walk around. Ronan carried a faint scent, light, clean, soothing. It made me want to lean in closer. Looking at the smooth line of his neck, I chewed the inside of my cheek, a little aggrieved. He had no trace of my presence on him. Even his emotional signature was faint. Betas couldn't form permanent resonance bonds with alphas, but as spouses, it shouldn't be this faint. If he walked outside alone, aside from the ring on his hand, who would know he was married? I pouted and quietly released my own emotional aura, wrapping it gently around Ronan. He didn't notice at all, still asking where I felt uncomfortable. After half a month in the hospital, I was finally allowed to leave. Ronan handled the paperwork and came back to pack our things. I rushed to take the bag from him. "Let me do it. You should rest." As a responsible alpha, how could I just stand aside and let my spouse work? I started packing with determination. Ronan frowned slightly. "Weren't you too weak to even go to the bathroom this morning?" I froze, then reverted to my wobbly act. "I just wanted you to rest a little." "It's fine. I'll pack slowly." Ronan leaned over and helped me pack. Just as I was enjoying how close he was, a sweet, sticky emotional scent drifted in from outside. A small Omega burst through the door, teary-eyed. "Darling, are you okay?" The Omega darted straight toward me, arms wide open. Panicked, I instinctively stepped back, hiding behind Ronan. "Who is this?" Ronan looked completely unfazed, as if used to this. "Your affair." Then he added, "Because of him, the two of us are about to get divorced." Cold sweat broke out all over me. My hair practically stood on end. Impossible. I was absolutely not the kind of person who would abandon a stunning spouse and go fool around outside. The small Omega stood awkwardly where he was, glancing between Ronan and me with confusion. He took 2 tentative steps closer. Still defending myself, I said, "There's no way. He's not even as good-looking as you." Ronan's arm was in my grasp. He lowered his eyes, but didn't pull away. "You're the one who dislikes that I'm a beta." "What's wrong with beta?" I stammered in panic. "Betas are great. I like betas. I really like betas." The familiar scent made my head ache, my thoughts turning fuzzy. Seeing the Omega continue approaching, I panicked and pushed him lightly. The next second, the Omega spun away like a top. Ronan flinched. I was just as startled by my own reflexive reaction. The room fell into a long, heavy silence. Ronan was the first to recover. He stepped forward, trying to help the Omega up. Are you all right? Maybe you should get an X-ray?" The young Omega refused his help. He pulled himself to his feet, supporting his lower back as he limped toward the exit. "I'm fine, really. You two keep talking. I'll I'll go get a number at the clinic. Cough, cough. On the drive home, Ronan was unusually quiet. Sitting in the passenger seat, I didn't dare release even the faintest trace of my pheromones. The new phone Ronan bought me kept lighting up with incoming messages. I didn't look closely. Probably just some scam texts about workplace compensation or something. I blocked the sender. The car stopped at a red light. I gathered every bit of courage I had. This must be a misunderstanding. Ronan's tone was cool. You remember nothing, and you're still that certain? Of course. My voice was firm. I swear on my life, I would never do something like cheating. Not in a marriage. I'll find evidence, I added. Evidence? Ronan laughed softly. And where are you planning to find that? Here. I pulled out my shattered old phone. I'm sending it in for data recovery. And if they recover something that proves you did cheat? It won't happen, I answered instantly. Ronan paused, at a loss for words, before finally saying, let's just go home. As soon as we got back, I found a reputable technician and mailed the phone for recovery. But when it came time to pay, I got stuck. I couldn't remember my payment password. Ronan paid for it instead. At the dining table, I kept trying different numbers on my phone. I even tried all the ones stored in my notes. None worked. Suddenly, a thought struck me. Ronan, when is your birthday? I entered the date. A moment later, Ronan's phone buzzed with a transfer notification. I held up my phone proudly. Found it. He stared at me, eyes dark. You claim you don't remember anything, and you're not scared at all? Scared of what? My injured brain was slow to catch up. You're here. Why would I be scared? Maybe it was that reassurance, but Ronan's attitude toward me softened a little. As night fell, my nerves tightened again. If we were husbands, did that mean we were supposed to sleep in the same bed? My heartbeat sped up, the tips of my ears heating. It felt inappropriate to be close before clearing up the misunderstanding, but if Ronan insisted, well, it wouldn't be impossible. If that happened, I'd make sure to stay fully alert and give him a night he'd never forget. With that ridiculous determination, I grabbed my phone and started studying various tips. But things didn't happen the way I imagined. I waited in the bedroom until midnight, memorizing everything, yet Ronan never came. The duplex apartment was silent and dark. Other than me, there wasn't a second person in sight. I followed the faint trace of Ronan's scent through the apartment. Turns out he was resting in another room. When I tried to enter, Ronan blocked the doorway. You said, he reminded me, that you didn't want to share a bed with me. I felt like lightning struck me. That's impossible. Ronan clearly didn't want to argue. He started to close the door. I wedged my foot into the gap, clinging to the last bit of hope. Then, can we at least stay in the same room with separate beds? I'm still weak, I added pitifully. I barely have any strength. What if I get dizzy at night and collapse in the bathroom? Silence. Ronan looked at my hand in the doorway, then at me. You didn't look weak when you pushed that Omega this afternoon. After much pleading, Ronan finally agreed to let me sleep on the floor of his room. I dragged my mattress in, and because of limited space, the two beds had to be pushed together. Ronan slept with his back facing me, as far away as possible. And again, the same doubt crept up on me. How could I ever have said something as awful as disliking him for being a beta? It made no sense. Compared to Ronan, that Omega earlier felt completely unfamiliar, certainly not someone I'd ever been involved with. The more I thought about it, the more my head throbbed like it had been struck hard. Instinctively, I shifted closer to Ronan, drawn toward the comforting scent lingering around him. I slowly rolled toward his side. The moment I slipped under his blanket, a soothing warmth washed over me. My tense mind relaxed instantly. I buried my face into the covers, breathing in his familiar scent. At the same time, I released a faint trail of my pheromones, marking the space near him. Soon, a different kind of pressure began to build, this time not in my head. What are you doing? Ronan's voice cut sharply through the dark. I jolted, withdrawing my pheromones at once. Just wanted to be closer to you, I admitted honestly. He didn't respond. The room returned to quiet breathing. Seeing he wasn't pushing me away, I boldly inched forward. My head hurts, I whispered. Your scent helps. Ronan finally responded. I'm not an Omega. I don't have pheromones. I just want your scent, I said. Ronan fell silent again. Sensing something off in his mood, I repeated what I'd promised earlier. I will find out the truth about that Omega. I'll prove it's a misunderstanding. Ronan rolled over. With that movement, the distance between us disappeared. And if you regret it after learning everything? He asked quietly. For some reason, I felt absolutely certain. I won't. Ronan took me to work with him. On the way, my mind was blank. I was terrified I wouldn't be able to do my job properly. But I was overthinking it. Because when I entered the building, I realized I was the boss. Ronan spread a stack of files in front of me. Your daily tasks are simple: review documents, listen to work reports, maybe attend a meeting. Soon, the first employee came in to report. I pretended to be serious, eyes sharp, nodding like I understood everything. When the report ended, I picked up the file to look again. With the employee watching nervously, I turned and showed the file to Ronan. Can I sign this? He skimmed it. When he nodded, I signed. With Ronan present, everything went smoothly. But sometimes Ronan had to leave me alone. The moment he left the office, the empty room made my chest tighten. After just a few minutes, I couldn't stand it. I followed him downstairs. Ronan was in the work area. A few Omegas and Alphas holding coffee tried to approach him, but the faint trace of my pheromones lingering on him made them stop in their tracks. Proudly, I walked right up to Ronan, declaring silent ownership. And so, I followed him everywhere for days. He raised a hand, I handed him water. He shifted in his chair, I pushed it for him. He went to the restroom, I stood guard outside. Ronan had his belt halfway undone when he glanced at me, utterly speechless. Are you seriously following me even now? Covered my eyes. I'm not looking. Ronan shook his head in defeat. After the sound of the belt loosening, a few other noises followed. I couldn't help it, I peeked through my fingers. And that one glance made my heart leap into my throat. During the day, the memory of what happened kept looping in my mind. My whole body felt hot, and my thoughts were an unmanageable mess. Just then, Ronan walked past me. He was wearing thin pajamas, the soft fabric brushing lightly against his skin as he moved, revealing just enough outline to make my breath catch. My mouth practically watered, and before I even noticed, my pheromones were spilling into the air. In minutes, the entire apartment was infused with the faint trace of my scent, Ronan included. Yet Ronan acted completely unaffected, moving around as usual, while I, like some ridiculous creep hiding in a corner, watched him pass by and let my imagination run wild. Before bed, I gave myself a shot of inhibitor. The sting of the needle spread through my skin, and the restless energy in my glands finally calmed. Only after making sure I was stable did I return to the room. Ronan was already lying down, leaning against the headboard with a book in hand. The moment I lay beside him, his familiar quiet scent slipped into my lungs, and all the thoughts I had worked so hard to suppress began sprouting again. By midnight, I still couldn't sleep. Eventually, I slipped into the bathroom with one of Ronan's shirts clutched in my hand. The fabric carried his natural warmth, soft and clean, filled with the kind of scent that was unmistakably his. I buried my face in it and took a long, steady breath, trying to calm myself down, trying to clear my head. But instead, my heart pounded faster. I tried distracting myself, tried channeling the restless energy into something harmless. Anything to keep my thoughts from running toward Ronan in ways I shouldn't. Just when I finally settled down a little, the bathroom door clicked. Ronan appeared in the doorway without warning. I froze. His eyes swept over me, taking in the shirt I was still holding, the way I looked utterly startled. Embarrassment hit me like a brick. I scrambled for a reasonable explanation. It's not what you think, I blurted. I was just practicing calming techniques. This shirt helps. It sounded weak even to my own ears. Ronan stayed quiet for a long moment before asking calmly, Are you finished? I need to use the bathroom. Face burning, I immediately stepped aside. All done, I muttered. Ronan walked past me, carrying his usual cool composure into the cloud of leftover alpha pheromones. He reached toward his waistband to adjust his clothes, then suddenly paused. He looked over his shoulder at me. Aren't you leaving? I lowered my gaze, painfully honest. I think I might need another minute. For the next few days, Ronan filled my dreams. He smiled in them. He leaned close in them. Sometimes he was getting dressed. Sometimes he wasn't. And every time Ronan got too near during the day, my body responded before my mind could even process it. Like now, he handed me a checked contract, tapping a finger lightly on the page. Sign here, he said. We were too close. Our shoulders brushed. My elbow accidentally touched his waist. I shot to my feet like I'd been electrocuted. Trying to stay composed, I lifted the contract, used the movement to block my reaction, and signed quickly. Ronan didn't seem to notice anything unusual. He checked my signature, nodded, and moved on to another document. I pressed a hand to my forehead, peeking at him through my fingers. Unlike most Omegas, Ronan wasn't fragile or slender. His build was toned, balanced, lean where he should be, firm where it counted. 2 nights ago, while half asleep, I'd accidentally rolled toward him. My arm had brushed against him before I snapped awake. That fleeting touch still lingered in my memory, making my heart ache just thinking about it. Shaking off the distraction, I texted the technician repairing my old phone. The reply came fast. Boss, this one's gonna take a while. Complicated stuff. I sighed. If only I had questioned that Omega the day he barged into the hospital. Now I didn't even have his contact info. It was putting my reconciliation with Ronan on hold, and I hated it. My phone buzzed again, a call from an unknown number. I scowled, hung up, and blocked it immediately. Phone scams had been wild lately. I got several a day, each more annoying than the last. Over the next few days, I tried asking people about that Omega, my friends, coworkers. No one knew anything. To them, Ronan and I had always been a model couple. Everything about that Omega seemed staged, like it only ever appeared around Ronan and our families. Suspicious. Very suspicious. Then one evening, the bathroom door opened, letting out a wave of warm steam as Ronan walked into the study. He searched around, then returned with a heavy album in his arms. These are your childhood photos, he said softly. Maybe they'll help you remember something. He opened it in front of me. The edges were yellowed, the colors faded. I stared at a kid with a running nose plastered across his face. That's really me? Ronan nodded. You were 3 there. He flipped the pages. Here you were 5, then 7. He paused at a photo from when I was 10. I was hugging another boy, throwing a peace sign. The boy looked stiff and uncomfortable, smiling awkwardly as if forced. Ronan's expression softened. That was me. Instantly, that awkward smile became oddly adorable. I touched the photo gently. So cute. We've known each other since we were kids? Ronan hesitated, then nodded. Something like that. He flipped to the next page, but my gaze drifted from the album to him. His hair was still damp, the faint scent of his body wash lingering in the air. I leaned closer, instinctively releasing a soft cloud of pheromones around him. Ronan turned his head slightly. What are you doing? We were already close. When he moved, the distance almost vanished. I snapped my gaze away, forcing down the sudden urge to close that last inch. After a long breath, I looked back at him. Ronan. HM? Ronan tilted his head. What is it? Please believe me, okay? Whatever happened with that Omega, there has to be some misunderstanding. I swear it. Just give me a little more time. I'll prove everything to you. And when that happens, can we start over? I'll work on my skills too. I promise you won't ever feel like things are just average again. Ronan didn't answer. Silence filled the room. My heartbeat thudded painfully in my chest. The longer his silence dragged on, the more nervous I became. When I finally gathered the courage to look up, I realized Ronan's face, all the way down to his neck, was flushed red. According to what Ronan said, once I became familiar with the workflow, he wouldn't stay by my side every day. Of course, I couldn't allow that to happen. Even if I eventually learned everything, I would still pretend not to understand and ask him little questions here and there. And to make sure he wouldn't get annoyed, every time I asked something, I would follow up with shameless praise and a relaxing shoulder massage. Everything was progressing smoothly between us, until that Omega showed up again. That day, Ronan and I were returning home after a walk. Right at the entrance of our community, that Omega, who must have been waiting for a long time, charged straight at us. He looked furious, rushing over as if he wanted to grab my collar. Luckily, the security guard reacted quickly and stopped him before he could get close. The Omega kept yelling, "Miles, how can you treat me like this? Are you even human? Did you forget everything you promised me?" Ronan's face darkened visibly. He sped up and walked ahead without looking back. Once we got home, I immediately started taking care of Ronan, serving tea, helping him change, fetching anything he needed. All he had to do was glance at me, and I'd run to him like a loyal puppy. But Ronan still looked upset. From the moment he saw that Omega, he hadn't said a single word to me. Strangely, I felt a little happy. Back when I first woke up, Ronan barely reacted to that Omega at all. But now he was angry. Didn't that mean he cared about me more than before? Suddenly, Ronan spoke. "Tomorrow, go to the company by yourself. I'm going to the stables. Can't I come with you?" I immediately whined. I haven't had a day off in forever. "No," Ronan rejected flatly. I pleaded for a long time, but he didn't budge. Desperate, I took the chance when Ronan stood up. I grabbed him, lifted him over my shoulder, and held him securely. "No, I'm not letting you go alone. If you want to ride something, ride me instead. I'm definitely better than any horse." Before Ronan could protest, I started walking in circles around the living room with him on my shoulder. Maybe it was the sudden height change, but Ronan tensed up at first, grabbing my hair tightly. After a few laps, he gradually relaxed. The toes that had curled earlier loosened, and his legs dangled comfortably against my chest. I even made a few playful horse noises. Finally, Ronan couldn't hold it in, he laughed. He cupped my chin and leaned down to look at me. His beautiful features softened with amusement, his voice carrying a warmth that made my chest tighten. "What are you doing?" Ronan pinched my cheek. "You weren't like this before." My breath hitched. Then, what was I like before? Ronan imitated me. He straightened his face, pretending to be stern and icy. "The engagement was arranged by the elders, so we don't need to fulfill any marital obligations. I've seen people like you before. Don't even think about having improper ideas. It's disgusting. I already have an Omega I love. Go find your own true feelings. You may be a beta, but you're not inferior to anyone. Are you really willing to be trapped in a loveless marriage? Don't worry. I won't interfere. I'd love to divorce as soon as possible." I pressed my lips together. "I really said all that?" Ronan nodded. And more, you don't remember everything." His tone was calm, unbothered. But my chest tightened painfully, as if someone had pulled at my heart. "I'm sorry. I said so many things that hurt you. You must have," my voice trembled. "You must have hated me and didn't want to." His palm covered my mouth, silencing the rest. He looked at me, more serious than I had ever seen. "I never thought of you that way." My phone repair was finally done. The tracking showed it was out for delivery. I sat in the office, restless with anticipation. As soon as I received the pickup text, I practically sprinted out the door. At the entrance, I ran into Ronan. He was standing at the emergency exit, talking on the phone. Not wanting to interrupt, I headed downstairs on my own. My phone came back looking good as new. As it powered on, my heart beat wildly. I couldn't wait to tell Ronan. I ran back to the office in excitement and pushed the door open, only to see that Omega leaning on Ronan's shoulder, crying pitifully. "Please, sir, you have to help me. Miles and I only had an employment contract. He got injured because of me that day, Under the contract, that counts as a workplace accident. He's supposed to compensate me for medical bills and emotional damages. But instead of paying, he blocked me everywhere. The Omega sobbed harder and hugged Ronan's arm. Please tell me, how is that fair? I'm just a weak Omega. Why would he treat me like this? Ronan noticed me standing at the doorway. He withdrew his gaze and placed a comforting hand around the Omega's shoulders. You're right. I'll make sure you get justice. Stop crying. Your face is all blotchy. The Omega blushed. Thank you, you're so gentle. Then he looked up, teary-eyed, voice trembling. If you ever get divorced, would you consider giving me a chance? I'm not a promiscuous Omega. I'm an actor. I graduated from... That was enough. The truth was obvious, and I was too furious to speak. I grabbed the Omega by the back of his collar, along with the check he brought, and threw both out the door. Trying to steal Ronan from me? Right in front of me? My head throbbed with anger, and the room spun. I tried to stabilize myself and release my pheromones to push out the Omega's lingering scent. Ronan sat still, expression strange. He said, that Omega is kind of cute. My heart stopped. Everything went black. I collapsed onto the floor and lost consciousness. When I fainted from anger, my lost memories suddenly flooded back. I remembered the first time I met Ronan, when we were both very young. In the still wild forest behind my family's estate, he sat alone at the base of a tree, tears running down his face. I walked over and asked, "What's wrong?" His voice was hoarse from crying. "I'm lost. Are you lost too?" "No." I shook my head. "This is my family's forest. How could I get lost?" Ronan wiped his tears. "Did your parents send you out here alone because they don't like you either?" I froze. Guests had come to our house that day, bringing several noisy children. I simply snuck out through the back door because I couldn't stand the chaos. Seeing his fragile state, I didn't explain. I just plopped down beside him. "Your parents don't like you?" The moment I asked, his tears started flowing all over again. Through his broken, trembling words, I pieced together the story. Ronan came from a big family with many children. He was the only beta. Because of that, he was never taken seriously, forgotten, overlooked, and left behind more times than he could count. At first, he tried convincing himself that his family was simply too busy to notice. But over the years, even he couldn't lie to himself anymore. He cried harder, voice wavering. "I don't want to go back. Why do I have to be a useless beta? I don't want to be beta anymore. I want to be alpha or even omega, anything but this." I grabbed him by the arm and pulled him up. "Don't say that. What's wrong with being a beta? Betas are great. I like betas the most. Betas aren't worse than anyone." Ronan blinked at me, his eyes shimmering. "Really?" I nodded with absolute certainty. "Of course. You'll become the best beta of all." And Ronan did. He grew up to be the most outstanding child in his family. When I regained consciousness in the present, the first thing I did was search frantically for Ronan. The moment I saw him, I practically slid on my knees and clung to him. "I thought you were being pressured by your parents. That's why I hired that Omega to act in front of them. There was nothing between me and him. And I actually liked you from the moment we met for the arranged marriage. You don't know how much I wanted to hug you or kiss you, but I didn't dare." Ronan was silent for a long moment. "So, do you still want a divorce?" "Of course not." I answered instantly. "No divorce." "Okay. Now go out for a minute." "No." I shook my head hard. "I'm not leaving." Ronan covered his face with a long sigh. "I really don't think this is the right time to talk about this." Only then did I notice something felt unusual under my hands. I looked up. Ronan was completely undressed, still covered in soap suds from a shower he clearly hadn't finished. And the spot my face had ended up at was extremely unfortunate. I sniffed once, then shamelessly leaned in again. "Darling, when I peeked last time, I already wanted to say this. How are you this attractive?" I nuzzled in again. "Can I kiss you?" Later, Ronan told me I had been his first crush. He'd liked me ever since that day in the forest when I encouraged him. Hearing that made my whole body light up. My pheromones flared uncontrollably, and that very night I slipped into a sensitive period, finally making up for the wedding night we never had. We stayed home together for 3 whole days. I gave all my focus to making him comfortable each time, determined to make up for everything he'd endured. By the 3rd day, Ronan had melted into the sheets, limp like warm pudding, faint marks scattered over his skin. I leaned close with a proud grin. "So? Not bad, right?" He stared at me, eyes watery, taking a long moment to respond. "It was okay?" I immediately lowered myself over him again. "One more time." Ronan laughed, bright, breathless, beautiful. "I'm joking," he said.
Alright, after finishing this story, there's really only one word that stays in my mind: satisfying. The whole novel flows so smoothly. It doesn't rely on extreme twists or dramatic shock value. Instead, it wins through something much harder. Misunderstandings that feel real, emotions that hit hard, and characters who stay charming all the way through. Miles, the seemingly cold alpha, becomes hilariously soft after losing his memory, almost like he woke up with a built-in romance filter. And Ronan, the calm, quietly self-sacrificing beta, really is the heart of this story. The more he holds back, the more you feel for him. What makes the story shine isn't the misunderstandings themselves, but the way the two of them keep making things messier the more they try to fix them. Their chemistry is warm, awkward, funny, and honestly, kind of addictive. Miles insisting, "I didn't cheat, I know I didn't," with absolute confidence, and how sharply he senses Ronan's emotions, these moments make both characters vivid and lovable. Of course, the novel isn't flawless. Some misunderstandings feel a bit dramatic, and a few side characters exist purely to stir things up. But because the story is so sweet, light-hearted, and emotionally sincere, those flaws barely matter. What surprised me most is how genuine the emotional arc feels. Even with all the confusion, their trust, dependence, and quiet affection grow naturally. And when they finally open up to each other at the end, it's unexpectedly healing. What about you? Which moment hit you the hardest? Miles' adorable post-amnesia devotion? Ronan's quiet resilience? Or the slow, gentle way they finally fell for each other?